Present out here. I'm Hiral Sharma. I'm technical consultant with McAfee, and I have my colleague Saurabh Eri, and also all of our McAfee representative present here. We welcome you on behalf of McAfee and DSCI for our specific session, which is with respect to forensics and incident response. Before we begin, actually, because it's our post-lunch session, we understand it's a little heavy. So we just want to do some quick exercises. We want to understand from your perspective, how many of you have dealt with forensics or maybe incident response? Just raise your hands. Okay, quite a few. Okay, thank you so much. That gives us a good understanding as to how should we be going ahead. Also, on agenda today, so we will be actually covering what forensics actually and incident response is. How do we perceive forensics and incident response? What are the key myths that are there around the industry with respect to forensics? How do we bust those myths and what's actual reality? After that, we will actually be proceeding towards the approach of tackling the forensics and responding to an incident or a critical breach scenario that might occur, because we must have heard some recent breaches which have happened here in India and across the globe. And I think that is one inevitable thing when we are dealing with security, that attackers are going to get advanced day by day and breaches are going to be there. So the entire idea is there will be breaches. How are we prepared to tackle those breaches, if at all there is one? And how do we respond to that and learn from there and move ahead? So I think some of the key practices with respect to people process is what we will be sharing up with you. We will also be doing some of the exercises with all of you available here. And great that we have audiences who have experienced around this forensics and incident response. I think that is what we are achieving today. So we will be giving you some practical exercises to do out here, and we will be doing some walkthrough here. Post that, we will actually be getting into the technological way of dealing with the forensics specifically and detecting an attack or probably an attack campaign. And lastly, we will be ending the session with whatever questions you have. Yeah, sounds good? Okay. So,
but just to add, just feel free to, barge in, raise questions, share your opinions. Let it be a two-way interaction rather than a monotonous one-way. Okay? So,
yeah. Thank you. So the first question I want to understand, how does a breach looks like? Because we have so much of a perception of a breach coming up our way, and we have heard now there are movies and web series which are talking about cyber crimes. Netflix is all about it. Prime has many things coming up on the breaches and all that. So what's our perceived notion that we see about the breaches? Anybody? Yeah, somebody accessing our data. That could be as simple as that. That could be via the legitimate ways of doing it, taking a remote session and accessing it, getting inside a network. That's the ideal way. Or do you think that there will be actual fire inside an organization while you're working, and this could also lead to a data breach? Or probably, because we are in a digital environment, you will be getting a message like this, that okay, Mr. XYZ organization, this is what has happened and you are under the breach. None of this sort happens when actually you are under a breach. And it's absolutely silent and absolutely sophisticated. Maybe it takes years of time and months of time to even identify that there was some kind of incident. Even if it is available within your organization, you might not know that there is some kind of evidences which are available. And that's where you need specialized skills, specialized practices and specialized plan to be ready to tackle those breaches, if at all any. Now, as I said, if you have a breach, how do you tackle those scenarios? So as the pictorial says, ideally what happens, your executive which is standing on the table will keep shouting as to this is what has happened, now our brand reputation is at stake, we have loss of reputation, and then there will be havoc created for all the employees who are reporting to them probably. Specifically the security guys as to what were you doing, what is your plan, and then security guys will reach out to the partner ecosystem, system integration ecosystem specifically in India, or maybe third party vendors to find out if there is a plan and how quickly can we remediate, how quickly can we sort that. That's what we do in a scenario wherein we have breaches. But we are not well prepared before this. So the reality check, as I said, if you refer to the statement that has come from FBI's director, there are only two kinds of organizations, as they say. One that have been hacked, another one which will be hacked. So none of us are secure because we are talking about security and we are dealing with that and all of us know about it. Now, all of us know that this is not a real address, right? What is this? Can anybody raise hand? And we have giveaways, so. Yeah. Okay, so this time the game of the rules were not clearly dictated. So next time when we have a quiz, we will have rules clearly outlined there. And this guest passing is not allowed, not everybody is allowed to speak at the same time. Just raise your hands and then we will follow protocol to, answer the questions. So as we said, this is like making a fool out of us. This is not a real address which exists. It's a local host, it's a loopback address which is there. And that's how, all of us have been fooled in day-to-day life basis also, by the attackers or the smart guys or the bad guys as we say. So if you just do a Google search, because all of us are relying on Google way big time and Google has been advertising specifically like use Google for anything and everything that you want in life, why not search for the technical stuff also? So if you just search around cyber forensics or probably an incident response, this is the definition that Google pops up. Forensics is simplification, which is key techniques which we used in connection with the detection of a breach or an attack or a cyber crime. An incident response is to have a plan to respond to certain things. So we will also be doing very, very simple things as mentioned here from a definition perspective. Now, because all of you said and many of you raised hand that you have dealt with incident response and you have managed forensics and all of it, let's do some quick fun thing. So before I start, okay, this is the game is all about, and I know it's a post-lunch session, so we want you to actually get up and walk and all that, so all of us are energized equally as we are. So when you get up, so they have 3 different rows, and there are 4 tables in each of the rows. So I will be highlighting questions out here. You will have to raise hand. Each table will have 1 volunteer. Can somebody come and join here, because this table is just 2 people. I think that's very crowded. Can you, if anybody wants to come here? So moving ahead, we will be actually, each of the tables will have 1 volunteer. You need to raise hands first, and our representatives will actually be telling out of each of the rows which one is the one who has raised the hand the first. Then out of the 3 also, out of the 3 rows that we have, 3 people will come forward. You will have the answers. You will have to hit the dart at the bullseye. Whosoever does that gets a rewarding goodie from us. So first, rules are clear. We need to answer the question, come ahead, play a game with us, and get the reward. Okay? So that you'll realize later on, cannot be told right away. Okay, so the first question, as you say, because we're talking about forensics and incident response, there are industry standards that we follow. What is the full form of FENS? I request each of the tables to have volunteers and raise hand first, and then we will move ahead.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so we have middle one, first row.
I think he raised the hand first. So we'll give it to you, please. The third one. Can anyone just hand over the mic? Answer is 3. Okay. Anyone else who wants to try? Next.
Okay, 1 row is done.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good. All
Yeah,
right.
please.
Yeah. Please.
Please choose the option, sir. We can't hear you loud.
So number 1, right?
Okay. Anybody else who wants to try? Because we have, yeah.
We have number 2.
No, you can't do that. You have to raise your hand and then say. Okay, please. Which one?
Number 2, okay.
Okay. Now, okay, that was done.
So I think you qualify.
So there's only one person who qualifies for the right answer. That's everybody else.
Please come. So here we go. You'll get 3 chances to hit the dart, okay? And you have to hit the fisher out here, okay? So once you do that, you qualify for the gift then. Please go ahead. Oh. Oh, man. Still, okay. So,
Yeah.
I think somewhere. All right. I think we should consider this.
Yeah,
This is the first one,
sure.
so we'll cut the ribbon with a success. So big round of applause, please. Good.
Can you just mention your name and probably the organization that you're belonging?
My name is Naresh. I am from CDAC, Hyderabad. I work for cyber security.
Great, sir. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. Okay. So the next question which is there on the board, again related to the standards, we're keeping it very, very simple. I hope this should be easy one. Okay. One is this table. Second one was this table. Okay, okay, wait, we will take the answers first, and the last one is, okay, the center table. Yeah. Okay. So, sir, may I know the answer from this table first? Yeah. Yeah, that's right, ma'am. Next, yeah. The option number 3.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh man.
That's the right answer. So, we will have 3 representatives from all the 3 tables. Whosoever hits the bullseye gets the prize.
Okay, please come ahead.
All 3 of you can come, please.
Take it. All right, here we go, sir. You'll also get 3 chances, okay, to hit the dart. Wherever you're comfortable, just beside this line. Yeah, we're good. Oh, that's good. Pretty near.
Close by.
Oh, so
Pretty close.
whoever is the nearest one will get the gift, huh? So, please. Thank you. All right. Oh.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
You've got a winner already, yeah. So good. No worries, no worries. This is out of the marks. Wow.
Great.
Oh man.
Wow.
Very near. And I think that's.
Yeah, we have a
you
clear
hit the
winner, I
bullseye,
think.
huh? So
yeah.
please, I think you should go first. You as well.
Sir, probably just introduce your name and the organization. Sir, can we just have the mic?
Yeah, please.
Ayush Kumar Sinha from NHPC, looking after the cybersecurity.
Congratulations, sir. Okay. Next question. Okay, that's the 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we have the 3 options. Whoever raised the hand first, sir, please. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. How about the last? Option 1. All of you gave the. Yeah, 1 representative from the last table, 1 volunteer. Wow. Oh. Oh. So, we have a clear winner. Okay, no mobile phones allowed and no checking on internet allowed, please. I can see cheating happening already here. Yeah. So just introduce him.
Hi, my name is Mahendra, and I'm from Ameriprise Financials, and I'm a cybersecurity analyst.
Great, congratulations, Mahendra. Okay, so this is the last question that we have of the quiz round. Okay, the one hand from this table, which one is the first one? First row, no answers from, okay, yes, sir. I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer. Yeah. Number 4. Okay. What's the last? Number 4. Okay, let's see what's the right answer first. Yes, sir, you can also take a guess now. Okay. So the answer is 4. Please come. Oh.
Hi, my name is Harish Goel. I'm from Publicis Sapient, and I lead Security Operations Center for them.
Yeah, congratulations. So I hope that was a fun interaction game that we had along with some learning. Now, all of you will be given a particular paper chart with a particular exercise on this. So you are a part of level 1 and level 2 IR team, and this is an alert which is generated by your AV, which could be any antivirus system or your endpoint security tool. And this is the access that you have with respect to the logs which are available. Each one of you will get these papers. I just want one thing. You need to unite as a part of the complete table team and prepare answers. There are 4 questions with respect to this exercise. Take your time, take at least 5 minutes, discuss amongst yourselves. And all the 4 questions that we have asked in this exercise, you need to answer them rightly. And whosoever answers those 4 questions rightly, again we will have first come first serve basis. Each of the 3 rows basically, raise your hands first, 1 volunteer from each of the tables, and then we will have the distributions. Clear?
You all can collaborate among your tables and discuss.
Yeah, we want you to collaborate.
Then come up with the answers, right?
We want you to collaborate, discuss among yourselves, and then come up with an answer. Yeah, 10 minutes.
All right, everyone. So we'll have 10 minutes to actually do it, think it through, brainstorm, collaborate, and then come up with the answers.
The question and the alert is there on the screen also. So probably you have the alert details in front of you and the questions you can open up. In case anybody needs more sheet of papers, we have one more. Okay, somebody's completed. Which one?
Give them time. We have those 4 goodies, right? In your bag.
Also request when you submit your papers, please mention your name and organization with the email addresses.
All right, good, good.
Okay.
All right, let's just hold on for another, 2 to 4 minutes, and then we will.
Let everybody complete,
everyone
though we
complete, and
have
then
though we have the details of each of the rows, the first ones who have completed this, but let's everybody complete this and then we'll move on. Yeah, completed, right? Okay. जो पहली रो से ये दो टेबल ने ऑलमोस्ट साइमल्टेनियसली किया है.
बताया वो पहले में ठीक है, there is not the time to discuss बाद में करते हैं. अभी 30 goodies है, 30 is fair enough, I think.
हाँ.
है ना, 3 tables को भी देना कम 10 per table तो भी बाद में discuss करेंगे.
Okay, so everybody done? Time is over. 10 minutes.
Okay. There's just 1 more minute to go, okay? Rush up. टेबल बेस्ड है, टेबल में से एक कोई रिप्रेजेंटेटिव लेगा.
हाँ. Now, as I said, each of the table will have one representative to answer the right question. So, the first row, this 2 table almost at a time, actually they've completed first. So, we'll give it to them. One of you can so answer. So, this was the first question that we had. What is your initial impression of the alert? Anybody else wants to try? Okay, so now because you have to get all the 4 answers right, sir. Okay, so your first is C. Okay, what is the second answer?
Okay.
Okay. What about the third one? Okay. And what about the last one? Okay. So now from the second table, second row rather, yeah, one of the representatives, please. First one is A. Okay. First one is C. Okay. 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 Yeah. B. Okay. 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 Fourth one is B. Okay. So now we have the answers from each of the rows, and all of you have individually also completed your answers. We will highlight the answers now, and please see if you were right, wrong, or do the introspection if needed to be. Else we will teach you the ways to tackle an incident, and probably after the last quiz when we have after the session, the answers will be absolutely accurate. Okay, so that's the agenda. It's kind of a pre-assessment that we were doing. So the first answer, I think nobody get it right. The first answer is A. If you look at the alert, that was very, very vague to conclude anything. Just by an AV alert, would you not investigate further and conclude it was a high risk or low risk? Because an antivirus will generate thousands of alerts every day from every individual user. How many users you have in your organization on an average? Even if it is, depends, right? So basically the kind of alerts that will be generated, and if your IR team or probably critical incident response team is investigating just on one alert, considering it's a higher risk alert, assume how much time will be taken off. Yeah. So that's what the first thing that I presented. There was a particular IP which was looking out to be a local host, which was ideally a localhost IP. So that's the way to full in. But that does not conclude if you do not investigate further. So if you have an IP detail, you would ideally be checking up with your, further logs or probably respective systems, and then you will conclude something. Just by checking an antivirus alert which is available to you, would you conclude it to be high risk, or probably the other option which is available? Yeah, so it will, so targeted attacks or probably the dark web that we are talking about today that everybody is aware about, it's always about high risk and high profile users. So it will always be lucrative to, fool you around and create so much of a noise that you focus on these things and not focus on the right thing to looked upon.
All right. Please, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have ignored any normal EV.
Yeah.
But because the asset under consideration was critical, that is why we chose the answers.
We understand. I think the same question had come out here also. But see, if you talk about general, practices which have been followed by APT groups these days, and the dark web searching that we talk about, or the specialized hunting that has been talking about, it's always about high risk users, high risk profiles. So it's one of the ways to fool you around. That's what we have been talking about. So idea is you need to actually have more than one evidences to say if it is high risk, low risk, or whether you want to investigate further. Just by looking at one simple event that has been triggered by something, would you just conclude? So you cannot conclude just by looking at simple event, and specifically if it is an endpoint generated event, wherein you will have multiple endpoints in your organization, multiple logs coming up, multiple alerts coming up, and there is so much of a noise. How do you specify it? Here, because the use case was such that we have given you a particular only one incident. So all of you are deliberating around it. Imagine a scenario when you have entire organization's logs coming out to you and there are so many alerts in your organization. So you need to look at the holistic picture. That's the whole idea. And it's not to pinpoint anybody. There's no right or wrong approach here again. It's very, very individualistic. It might be right, but probably your thinking it's a CEO, laptop, and that is why it is a higher risk. So you might investigate further going ahead. But the ideal approach, as per the standards and as per the people who are actually dealing with forensics and specialized experts, these are the best choice answers which we have.
Just to put it in a different sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. True, true. You have a point. But what we are trying to demonstrate over here is that an alert from a point product cannot be conclusive evidence from forensic investigation perspective. We got to have a holistic approach to look at that alert from different angles. For example, this is what our endpoint says. But what about SIEM solution at that point of time? And that's the guy, that's a focal point who's talking to all other assets in your environment, isn't it? You may want to gather the insights, accumulate the insights from SIEM, and then from your global threat intelligence, from different angles you try to analyze the alert, and then you actually probably come to a conclusion that okay, whether to go this way, whether it is a known threat or not a known threat. But over here, what we are trying to say is that this particular alert is inconclusive in nature, right? It may be a little vague, and we cannot come to or jump to a conclusion just on the basis of this alert over here, right? That's what Hiral is trying to actually say. But you've got a point. There's nothing absolutely correct or incorrect about this, right?
Yes, sir.
So most of the companies today uses only 3 risk categories, that is low, medium, and high.
Yeah.
Within these 3 levels, how do you place this alert? Low, medium, or high?
So that's what we are saying. We don't know as of now. So until unless you investigate further, how would you prioritize or give a priority? That's the precise question is all about. If you're not very sure about what's the benefit, you will obviously go ahead and investigate. And when you have the investigation, foolproof evidence is available, and more than one thing, indicating something. Like this is very clear example of only a particular file getting with the particular high-profile user. That could be CEO, CFO, CIO, whatsoever it is. But the point, we are not saying that you will not investigate further and let it be there. You need to do the investigation further, but we are not too sure as to what priority to provide here. And that's why we don't know about it. And we will have to get into the details of it.
But the challenge here is most of the companies have multiple network endpoints or maybe the network connected devices. The number of alerts and the events getting generated is high.
Yeah.
Until and unless a risk categorization is done, no one looks at that ticket. That's
True.
No, you are absolutely correct, and this is one of the key areas that we are trying to address. As you'll experience it by the end of this session, that the answer to this question comes out naturally. Okay, so that's our whole agenda. You have a point. A SOC analyst, first thing in the morning, he logs into his console, be it any management console for that matter, and until unless he doesn't have a precedence or a severity based categorization, right? He'll be hitting in the dark. From where should he start his day, right? That's a big pain point. So ideally, that's why most of the solutions should be equipped with that type of threat ranking. That this is the high and medium level of alerts on which I should start my day. This is what I need to focus on the first thing in the morning, right? So you have a point actually. So this is what you'll experience by the end of the session. Anyone else has any questions? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So now let's move ahead.
Yeah.
The answers for question number 3 and question number 4 are this.
Yes, L0, L4, who's proactively engaged in the threat hunting activity in your organization. True.
Yeah, so sir, the whole agenda that we are trying to cover up today is basically around this only, that we have lots of assumption and there are ways that we are dealing out with incidents today, as rightly said by you. If we do not prioritize something in our tools, we don't know what to take care of, considering so much of alerts which are generated. So it's not only tools or technology which are going to help you. We need to have skilled people, be it L1, L2, L3. How can we leverage upon the experts, and what are the different ways to probably modify your existing operations that you are running, or improvise upon them. So that's the whole agenda about today's session. And that's where we wanted to bring in this brainstorming first, so that we have invoked the thoughts within you. Now whatsoever we talk about, you'll be able to relate to all these incidents that we're talking about and the thoughts that had come in your mind while practicing this exercise. Yes sir, please.
Yeah, you're correct. So that's a very valuable point. So most of the times, until we have been breached, or files are, until and unless it is active in state, it doesn't get detected. I'll put it that way. Now there are dormant files which may be lying in, say, 100 of 10,000 endpoints in your environment, 100,000 machines. How do you figure out what are those 100 machines in my environment, right? In which the files may be lying in a dormant state. So you cannot actually analyze the complete impact assessment. You cannot do the impact assessment until and unless you are aware of that. And another point to add is, files like time bombs, right? So attacker has smartly crafted a file that will trigger itself at 12 o'clock on a Sunday night. How do you come to know about those time bombs? Whether it exists in your environment or not. So you need specialized tools and solutions that we are going to talk about in the latter half of this discussion. The second part of the workshop is actually targeted to answer all those queries in detail.
No, we are not saying no point investigating. If you see need to investigate further, you can't conclude it, that's what we are saying.
True, true.
So
a job of a forensic investigator, actually. You're correct. And that's what the point that we are trying to bring in out here, that you need specialized expertise from the seasoned veterans in the game to be able to do such level of deep dive exercises.
There's a normal, you have to investigate further. And immediately you have to get the memory dump investigated. Without going to the logs, what happened, what events happened, going to the EDR, what file were downloaded, why it was done. Directly memory forensic convinced.
So what happens? You're correct. So as I said, the idea of this exercise is not 0 or 1 binary. Is it true or false? No. It's a subjective topic, right? So every analyst has a different approach follows a different level of hypothesis to resolve the same problem. If I give the same problem to two people out here, one may solve it in 4 hours, another may take 4 days, right? So these are different hypotheses that we follow. But over here, what we are trying to convey is that, it's a subjective topic, and these are the typical approaches that comes to our mind whenever we are in a similar type of breach or attack situation, right? And we cannot rely on a single source of alert, right? Or a point alert from a point product is what we are trying to say. It's not 0 or 1.
Now, because as we announced that it was a quiz, we ideally wanted all the 4 answers to be right. Unfortunately, we haven't got that. So we will be going ahead with the second best option, which is 3 answers at least right out of all the 4 questions. And we have only 2 people doing it absolutely okay, or probably 2 organizations. The first one is the NCR Corporation. Great. Can we have a round of applause for ma'am, please?
Okay. Here we go.
And Government of India, C.S. Negi. Wow. Congratulations, sir. I think both of them are from the same table. So congratulations. Rest, as we said, there is no 0-1 answer. There can be multiple approaches. But this would have been the ideal way to do it if you, as sir said, if you refer to the forensics expert or get into the further investigation. These are the various steps that we would perform, and this will be the results which will come out. So this was, by the way, this was not an exercise question. This was a real event which had occurred. And our forensics teams had done the investigation, and this is how we could conclude an event, and that's where we have picked it from. So this exercise which we did actually is a part of one of our training courses that we offer to various organizations from our professional services wing, which actually focuses on forensics and incident response. And we do such kind of tabletop exercises and dry runs and all of it. So we actually took out one of the exercises in benefit to everybody whoever is participating here. Okay, so now let's move on. The first question, as we said, and some of you have already given the answers also as to how do we begin? Where do we start without even analyzing the further devices? So all of us know the first thing when we talk about security operations is to look out the SOC investigation and investigate what's going on around the entire security operations. You might have various tools, as some of you mentioned that you will have SIM, you might have EDR solutions, you might have forensics, various solutions available. Ideally, I'm sure all of you must be having a SOC solution available or would have designed SOC solution. The mission and the responses that we are talking about when it comes to SOC are this two. The first and foremost, we want to have a very, very strong monitoring and detection system. Ideally, we want to prevent also from SOC, which is the next generation of SOC 2.0 that everybody is talking about these days. Having it automated and taking and remediate actions from there, responding to an alert, all of that is there. But the foundation of security operations centers are built on these two parameters. One is the monitoring of entire ecosystem. This gives you, so for example, any executive walks in and says, how is my security posture today? The first dashboard that you would be looking at is your SOC dashboard and say, I'm doing good, bad, how many alerts do I have, how is my health organization and everything. And also, as I said, the second part that everybody is maturing towards is responding to those threats. How fast, how soon, and how quickly can we remediate or respond to those threats? That's how has been the mission of SOC. Now, this is something that I'm sure all of you can relate to. How are the SOCs built today? As I said, don't go by the technology. That might be, you might have some of this in more of a quantum, less of a quantum, everything available, some of it available, that's all okay. Ideally, we have all the different event sources or data sources from your security tools or networking tools or relevant mechanisms, which goes into the, one part of it goes into the investigation mode, which is forensics and analytics. Another part you keep for your, compliance perspective, which is log management, having complying to the various regulatory bodies such as RBI guidelines, SEBI if somebody is belonging to. Now even GOI has a data privacy and retention policy. So each of you, whosoever belonging to different vertical respectively, you will maintain your logs. You will also be maintaining that for quite a long time. Another one to get into is your analytics and forensics. Then there is a particular process that has been built out there. Some of you might have specific specialized sources such as critical incident response team, which we call it CIRT teams, or you have L1, L2, L3 engineers. L1's prime responsibility looking into the incidents. If it is at all suspicious or some kind of suspicious, raise a ticket, forward it to the L2. L2 will do a deep dive analysis. Ideally, they should be doing it if they have the skills. And then only if there is so much of an investigation required, then they'll forward it for the L3 for taking in response or immediate action. Parallel to the CIR team. Now, this roles also might be clubbed somewhere. But ideally, this is how SOCs are built upon, right? Now, if you talk about current state of security operations, even after investing so much into SOC, so many tools, so many people you have, we still have shortages coming out. And why? Because of the simplest of the ways that these attackers are coming in, which are called TTPs. Anybody is aware about TTPs? Now, what is the actual, what is it? Anybody can tell me? Okay, we know the.
Now they can say, come and live on your network, how to investigate, what tools they're using.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the behavior of the adversaries, in short.
So we will have a basic slide on that because that itself is a huge topic to cover the MITRE attack framework, which is a part of that's where the TTP comes in. We'll have a snippet of it coming up. But if we talk about the basic challenge that we see, if you look at the point number 2, adversaries are playing living off the lands. They know what techniques, and what procedures are proven because it's all out documented in a global knowledge against the security solutions which you have deployed and which have been successfully given them the access to the right kind of networks, right kind of data that they've been wanting to evade. Everything is easily available to them. And I will tell you from our experiences of forensics and the case studies that we have across the various domains and industry, 80% of the times that the lateral movement that happens after the backdoor establishment in an organization is via RDPs. RDP is legitimate. All of us rely, most of the administrators rely on RDP tool. And 80% I am saying the lateral movement of malicious activities or the ransomwares have happened using RDPs only. PowerShell, one of the great tools given by Microsoft, it's been used and even badly abused by the attackers. So basics are being used to penetrate. All of us keeps talking about sophisticated attacks or APTs are targeted. All of them are, some of them are state sponsored and we have details and all of it. But if you look here, they are using common techniques and procedures. Not great thing, and we will show you one of the walkthroughs of one of the incidents. Okay, I think the second last point is also very important. I think some of us highlighted also that the skills of people that we are talking about, and that's the whole idea today. We wanted to cover the entire process and people part of it, not only the technology. Because if we talk about people skills that we have with respect to L1 and L2 engineers, those have been available. As I said, L2 ideally be doing a deep file analysis or deep investigation of a particular incident, then only be forwarding it to the L3 guys. But ideally, we immediately rely, anything that we say like memory dump, the first immediate inception that came is only L3 can do it. Not true. Not at all true. Okay, so we know there are shortcomings of our existing operations which requires modification and improvement. Now this is what we are talking about. What is it? Is it attack? What does ATT and CK call? CK is full form, anybody? Common knowledge, great. That's what he said. Adversary, techniques and common knowledge. Do you know something of this sort exists? So if you refer MITRE framework, these are all based on real world experiences. So we have seen so many attacks have been happening from decades, minimum at least 2 decades. And there have been various ways by which these attacks have been happening. Many commonalities were found when an organization like MITRE did the overall assessment of it. And they have kept that as a real world observation and a knowledge base for everybody's consumption.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Just to add, can anyone share, what was the need to come up with a MITRE? MITRE has come up with ATT and CK framework. Anyway, what was the need? What triggered them to actually create this at the first place? Sorry? Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Yes, sir, please.
True. Sorry. Pattern of attacks, okay. Sorry?
Experience sharing, yeah.
All right, yeah. So good. So more or less, whatever has come out, it's more of an outcome of MITRE's ATT and CK framework, isn't it? This is the outcome of it. The question is, what is the need? Why did they come up with this at the first place? I was reading a very interesting article a couple of days ago, and that states that, most of the adversaries today, because it's a lot of investment to launch an attack against us, a state-sponsored attack against a particular organization, it's a lot of investment of time and efforts, isn't it? And as part of that, adversaries today are trying to, test their exploit against all the existing vendors. whether a signature is, exists for that particular thing, whether my behavior could be traced by these tools or not. And that's how they have come up with, evasive methodology to target the organization. And those are known as targeted attacks, right? And this made, organizations like MITRE, who was not in the ATT and CK type of domain, they thought of, coming up with a venture wherein they will evaluate all the vendors. Now, when I say evaluate, it is different. They will evaluate the detection methodology, whether, vendor A can detect this or not, vendor B can detect this or not. But it doesn't mean that MITRE is there to provide the ratings to vendor. No. That's not what their goal is. It's a non-profitable type of organization who's trying to just, conduct a red teaming exercises against each of the vendors as part of their evaluation. I'm sure you must have seen about recently APT3 evaluation criteria and all those stuff. Now APT 29 evaluation they are coming up with. So this is to check, whether the existing vendors today are capable of, identifying the behavior of all these attacks which are being launched by the adversaries. That's the whole objective. That is how MITRE has actually kind of originated with the ATT and CK framework, right? So all that you have said was the outcome of it. But those are the good inputs. Over to you, Hiral.
Let's move forward. So as although we have already explained, so this is what basically techniques and procedures means. Okay, if you just read by the definition of MITRE, the technical goal or the reason why they are performing a particular breach, how that has been achieved, and lastly, specific details of that particular breach is what is procedures. Okay. Now, with respect to that, I am sure this is also known to everybody, the cyber kill chain. Where a particular attack has been targeted or has been conducted, you have different phases of it. One is obviously pre-attack, where you are actually getting into the reconnaissance mode and weaponization mode. That means acquiring the knowledge of the targeted organization, understanding everything about it, and then going ahead and ultimately exploiting it. Okay, so as I said, we just wanted to touch it briefly, that these are the key reasons which are available because of which your current state of security operations have the shortcomings and are not able to live up to the expectations or the mission statement that we spoke about, because of which they were being set up. Okay, now, so we agree that there will be an incident or a breach which will be coming up because of the shortcomings that we have and because of this, ongoing things that adversaries keep coming up with. Now, the challenges that we have with respect to incident response, the first and foremost is lack of preparedness. Are we all prepared of a scenario wherein all of us will be breached? All of us have this human mentality, और हम हिंदी में बोलते भी है ना, जब आएगा तब देखा जाएगा, देखेंगे जब होगा तब देखेंगे. We'll just take one day at a time and we'll enjoy as per whatever is going about it. But does that actually apply or is applicable in our security world or the IT world to say, wherein your critical, assets are at risk, your critical data is at risk, your brand reputation is at risk. Also, if at all you have, okay, the plan is not there, now you are under the breach. What do you do in emergency response situations? Do you have a predefined scope of work or predefined people to reach out to? Do you have experts who will come immediately and help you out with the emergency incident response? Or you will then, once you have a breach, will go ahead and find out whosoever is available, getting into a, considering most of us are from government organization, getting into the, contractual mode, finding out the scope and then giving them the scope to deliver. Because that's one of the biggest, lacking point also. Governance of government organization is also one of the bottlenecks when we talk about responding to a particular situation. Because there are so many contractual, legal, all of these obligations that's come our way. Lastly, one of the biggest challenge that we have, as I said, we have built our SOC with so many tools and so many people and everything. It's very, very difficult to go ahead and again justify the investment that you've already done. You already spent so much on SOC, and unlike any other business units, security return of investment is not something that can be predicted or can be shown to the board of the management, who will be approving your budget. So that's also a perceived notion that all of us are carrying, because of which we are not able to respond to the incidents which are required in a better way. So as I said, what are the different ways or processes to respond to these incidents? I think this was a question also. We have primarily, there are two organizations or two standards to follow. One is NIST, another is SENSE. Primarily, they have various frameworks to respond to an incident. Ideal ways to respond to an incident have been highlighted. Okay. Now, if you consider the NIST as an organization, they talk about preparation as a key thing, which is what we have also been talking about. You need to be prepared for an incident, detect, analyze that particular incident in detail. They have clubbed the point number 3, which is contamination, eradication and recovery, which we will be covering all of this in detail as to what each of them mean and what is the goal of each of them, how can we learn back in all of it. And SENSE, so they also believe in having a post-incident activity, and SENSE says that you need to have a lessons learned. As an individual thing, you need to document and have those steps to be followed. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? Because from a SOC perspective, when we were building the SOC or the SOC mission that we were talking about, we were again talking about detecting, which is monitoring, responding, which is correction and protection, and adapting to it. So we already have this somewhere or the other deployed in our organizations. It's just that we are not able to frame it backwards and establish a process around it. Now we know what process to follow, what standards to look at. Some of you might be doing it already. Do we have a plan readily available? That means, do you know, let's say if in a preparation stage you did a very good job, how do you get into the next stage? From a next stage perspective, for example, from a preparation perspective, you are very well prepared. Now you want to get into a detection mode. How will you apply the detection knowledge base to your contamination and eradication recovery? There again, you might have learned something, you might have observed something, you might have gained something with evidences. You need to apply that knowledge back, maybe in an automated process, or maybe with the expert's help, back to the detection analysis, using the forensic analysis. And obviously, last learned activities, you need to be better prepared for next time. You need to update your system, you need to update your deployments, update your entire ecosystem. Now, let's get into each of the process. Now, this is what I was telling that we will get into each of this. Okay, as per the NIST, what is the goal of preparation? Pretty simple, as the goal says, prepare the entire team with the procedures, guides and readily available incident handling tools. Probably tools or guides, or we call it guided investigation, some of you say SOC playbooks, to have it ready and handy, creating kind of a war zone. So that in case of an incident that might occur, how are we prepared, how are we going to take care of that? Now, because you also know what kind of TTPs are available, what kind of basic techniques that these APT groups might use, at least for the known thing, we are better prepared. Okay. Now, identification. The ideal goal for identification is determining if an incident and examining the events and context to confirm on it. Okay. Contamination is as simple as that. Once we have a problem, so all of this can be a part of your red teaming and blue teaming exercises. All of us are aware about what red teaming and blue teaming exercises are, right? You might have it outsourced to a third party, or you might do it internally if your teams are capable. And between you one of them can be a bad guy and the one team can be a good guys. They can start defending their systems and the other team will start penetrating the entire ecosystem with the known tactics, TTPs basically. And then you see how robust is your organization's entire ecosystem and how well prepared are you to contaminate such things. Similar exercises is what we are talking about. Contamination is stopping the problem that we have. Eradication is basically making sure that nothing is spread anywhere else. Let's start cleaning it up. Once it has been spread up, after all of this, we need to recover to the normalcy because we have been under the bridge. We have to come back to normal. And then whatever we have learned, document that, make that as a part of your war room that we spoke of, and give it back to the entire ecosystem so that you are better prepared for next time and you have a good learning available with you. Yeah? Clear? So now you have done, you know what standards to follow, you know how to go about it, what procedures to have in place, how to get into each of the planning mode, because we have discussed about where to learn and where to give it back into the ecosystem. How do you apply the knowledge back to the previous stages? The point is, how are you so sure that you are ready with it? You need to check your readiness by answering simple of these questions. Are you able to answer these questions to your executives? If anybody comes and say post-incident, what data was stolen? How does it impact our business? That's one of the key things. Because if at all there is a breach, it's just a password hack that has been there. Somebody was able to establish a backdoor, was able to exfiltrate some data, which is what the security operations teams will ask. Have they spread it laterally? How many systems are impacted? What was the initial vector, the first vector? Do we have the answers to all of this? Because that will come from forensics, and that requires a specialized tool or a services or experts help. Okay. Now, so ideally, this is what we are talking about. It's not an if situation that we want to have. It's ideally a when situation. It's not jab aayega tab hum dekhenge. We will have to be better prepared with it, so that whenever it occurs, we know what to do, and we are not creating the havoc which we saw in the first pictorial. Looking out for people, running here and there, for documents, for files, for reaching out to the partner ecosystem, relying on a third party, or probably getting into a contractual at that point in time, whosoever is available with. Yeah. So that's the key thing that we wanted to highlight from the entire thing. Now this is a sample, emergency incident response. There is a particular incident that had occurred to a particular organization. Again, we cannot name the organization. This is one of the key government organization that had contacted us during November 2018. So the reporting that happened to us, please know the time frame, because every time stamp when you talk about forensics are very, very important. That will lead to the overall investigation report. Okay. So it was reported on November 2018. They contacted McAfee emergency incident response, as I said. Since there was no incident response plan available, there was no proper exercises which was been done, they contacted us as we were available in one of the technological ways with them, and they knew they could approach us. So as I said, the reporting that happened was during the November time. But the actual incident that had started was in September 2018. That was the first compromise that happened. Then they deployed the tools in the data center again in September itself, which we have the evidences of. October 2018, a critical server was compromised, and then it was spreaded across. One of the systems killed also, so they knew which systems or which technologies can kill us or can stop us. They customize the entire environment and then they move ahead. And if I were to explain this to you technologically, and this was a representation if I could give it to you, it was a phishing email. The tools that were used, just see that. It was a phishing campaign. Somebody tried contacting back to that particular phishing campaign. PowerShell was exploited and Mimikatz was used as a remote access gaining tool to get the password. Now Mimikatz also, if I were to get into the details of forensics, has two different versions to it. One which gives just the hash, another which gives hash and password in detail in clear text format. And people can customize Mimikatz so that none of the security tools, everybody knows about Mimikatz as a remote access tool, and all of us know that it is not a good tool to have in your environment. Still, it can bypass your security mechanism, traditional security mechanism, be it your endpoints or network or gateways or whatsoever, because they would customize it in a way that it would be legitimate. Okay. They tried getting into the environment using a VPN connection which was backdoor to their command and control. Once you have a backdoor, they maintain a PowerShell hidden backdoor into their workstations, and using RDP, as I said, they started having a lateral spread and it was compromised. Now, if you remember the first slide that we were talking about, how does an incident look like? What's the visual of an attack? Anybody seen the attack? How does it look like? Will we have a screenshots coming up, systems getting down or a fire or whatever? This is how an attack looks like, as simple as this. It is familiar, right? All of us must have seen the incidents, alerts, monitoring system, dashboards. Just zoom in a bit. Yeah.
Last slide also said the attackers use the compromised user credentials.
Yeah.
Are you able to track from which system and how?
Yeah, we get entire details, which system, host IP, every detail, what files were dumped. We give entire report as a complete forensic with timestamps when what is it done. I can't give obviously for obvious reasons out here because beyond a point we can't elaborate. But if you see, using mimicates, of course, somebody tried accessing an privileged admin account and that's why they could have the access. We were able to. So if you see, just load the screen. Yeah, minimize. So there are so many logs which are there, right? And everything looks almost similar. How do you find out what was suspicious at each of the timestamp? As I said, timestamp is very important. And when we said in the previous slide as a complete cyber kill chain picture as to when the attack actually came in, we highlighted it was September 2018. And the reason we could see that when we are reading this, we could identify there was a PowerShell exploit. And I understand it's humanly impossible until unless you have a specialized skills to sit and do the hunting. And that's why we are saying you need to have a dedicated critical emergency response team as a part of your overall organization process, or maybe relying on experts to do that for you on a regular basis, or hunt the entire environment. Okay, now that's one. Another thing that we said, because there was a backdoor which was established, all of us know what is backdoor, right? You get into you attack an environment, establish a backdoor so that you have a back communication to your command and control. And whenever possible, it might take years also. So another example which I have not highlighted here is, it actually started 3 years ago in one of the very, very critical organizations of India, Government of India. It started 3 years ago, 2015. And that was the first ever evidence we could caught. After the 2018 onwards, there were regular activities and actual breach and the system reboots and everything started happening in 2019. So 2018 onwards, we could actually have the trails which are coming out, like, we see in all these web series that I speak of. So obviously, the direction is much better. Ours is all documented. But we could actually trace out everything, what steps, which was the preparation time, when was the backdoor established, and the tools, again, as I'm saying, lateral movement was done using RDPs and WMIs. So it is very, very difficult to identify out of the entire system that where the problem is. And hence, you need a dedicated IISS services or plan. Now, this is not that we are saying in-house or outsource somewhere. It's all completely up to you. But you need to have some experts who have skill sets in forensics and incident response, specifically to find out all of this. Save your time and money, as we said. Do not run at the last moment when you have an incident and then you're running around it. And do not lose your investment just on technologies. Have pre-prepared statement of work, and specifically do not get into the last moment contractual terms because of being government agencies and finalizing somebody just by that and getting ahead with it. Now, some of the advanced services from just 2 slides as to where we can help being McAfee. We offer multiple services, starting from education, solution deployment services, which I'm sure some of you must know, and cyber intelligence as a service. The specialized team which takes care of incident response is called Foundstone Consulting. Foundstone actually is a product agnostic team. Some of you might have heard the Foundstone name also. They are purely consulting organizations established in 1994, acquired by McAfee. They are specialized pool of resources, marvelous resources, very limited. They do not worry about any of the McAfee product. They will not even talk about McAfee products when they come into your environment. They do not care which technology you have deployed or how is your SIM or this thing doing, that thing doing. They'll only talk about your incident response and forensics. They'll get into the details of everything. They represent all of this and they have a global presence, as I said. Some of the key services that Foundstone offers. First and foremost, the detection and response capability, starting with emergency response. We also help you prepare your SOC gap analysis and incident response plan in place, so that in case you have one, we can help you out with your internal team. So we'll help you out, do those tabletop exercises, equip your team with that so that they are capable of handling such incidents on their own. Infrastructure-based services for critical infrastructure as well as for your network security architecture reviews. Software security from a compliance perspective, and obviously lastly the training. So training we want to highlight, we did a training on forensics and incident response, specifically malware handling training for critical agencies or critical organizations of Government of India. So which is what we have already done, and we have a case study available with that as a readily reference. Training services, as I said, I've already covered. So the second part, if we talk about forensics and incident response training, we cover this as a complete training. We're just covering a module of it today, but we have a detailed 5-day course available to it. Now, since I've spoken about, we have learned how the forensics and incident response is, what are their best definitions, how do we go about doing it, what a breach actually looks like, how do you investigate a particular incident, how do you start, what are the best practices and standards to look forward at. Now, some of the recommendation or the key takeaways that we want to leave out to you. From a people and process effectiveness perspective, I think the first point is very, very important, which is deployment effectiveness. How many of you are existing McAfee customers? Just raise your hands. Okay. So as a part of our special support and otherwise also, on request, we do regular health checkup of your deployments as a part of our support ecosystem. And that has been reported to you. So I think we recommend that to be done on the regular basis, because you have invested so much in tools. If they are not configured to best of their abilities, there are updates which are coming up, there are product capabilities which are being added. How many of you know, like from an endpoint perspective, we also cover PowerShell and fileless malware protection on endpoints. You might have one of the endpoints deployed from us, but the latest versions cover that. Just because you are not updated on endpoint, you might lose on that feature. So the only humble request is keep your entire ecosystem updated, reach out to who's, not only McAfee, you might have other OEMs deployed. Reach out to the right guys, ask them for what's new coming up, do a regular update and effectiveness check of your organization. From a process perspective and people perspective, test it, very important as I said. Red and blue teaming exercises, have an IR plan in place, do tabletop activities regularly, and training. Now from an basic hygiene perspective, because which is what I said, some of the basic legitimate tools are widely used by attackers. Specifically, the first one should only be allowed in an organization by exceptions. And exceptions needs to be approved either via security operations head or via CISO. Rest, it should be default on a block mode or disabled mode, such as PowerShell, Microsoft macros, PS scripts, auto run autoplay, all of this which I have highlighted. Segmentation of network is very, very important. If you have a flat network, it's very easy for an attacker to do a lateral spread. So do a network segmentation. I'm sure some of you might be doing it, but this is like basic hygiene to take care of. And lastly, standardization of process. Do not just rely on blacklisting based technologies. Move ahead to whitelisting. Performance benefits humongously, plus you are very sure of what you are doing and what technologies you are having. Show the file extension is very, very important. Basics, as I said. Email and attachments needs to be filtered very, very clearly. RDP use needs to be limited. If at all required, then only to be done, and that to be monitored very, very regularly, and regular patching up your system. So those are some of the ways. Yes, sir. So that goes as a recommendation, but I will not be able to give you the exact organization as to how many of them have done it. Okay. So, sir, see, I don't have a definite answer to it as to how many of them have done this disabling. The recommendation that goes from our side is Ideally, they should be disabled because that's one of the common ways to get into your organization. See, ideally, sir, as I said, it should be disabled or blocked only if you have a need of it and if you're utilizing those features of macros. Then only you should go ahead and on the exception basis should be allowing it. And once you allow it, you need to monitor those end users on a regular basis because they are more prone to having those attacks coming into your organization. Yeah. Now, because I've covered up the people in Process Plus, I will request Saurabh to take over with the technological approach, and then lastly we'll do the validation part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you Hiral, for the wonderful session. Before I begin, so before we begin with the part 2 of this workshop, do you guys want to take a breather or water break for 1 minute or so? All right. So we'll proceed. Okay. So all that I'm going to cover today is, firstly, I'm going to take you to an informational ride covering the standard approach to digital forensic investigation. Then we'll talk about, the state-of-the-art automated AI-based guided investigations, right? Then we'll touch upon, actually, no, I'll go with the majority. So you can probably just go ahead. Yeah. Then we'll talk about, what role can technologies like EDR can play in your next generation cyber SOCs. And finally, we will experience how humans and machines can collaborate, can work together to solve the complex problems of our threat forensics, right? So now, before I begin with the standard approach to digital forensic investigation, it's important to know what is digital forensics. Because forensics that is being covered by Hiral, it's a very broad term. It's a very broad topic. And digital forensics is a specialized branch of it that basically focuses on the recovery and investigation aspect of the material that we extract from the digital devices, typically related to a crime scene. So it basically encompasses and provides comprehensive services for your phones, your electronics, computers, networks, and websites, right? Now that we have got a sense of what is a digital forensic, let me share a few of the key tenets related to it, right? The first thing to understand when it comes to digital forensic arena is that what is the chain of custody? Has anyone heard of this term before? Do you want to explain it?
So when there is a critical document or asset needs to be handed over to somebody which is outside our periphery, so we need to maintain to whom we have handed over, when it was handed over, and it is a complete trace of the entire cycle, that from me to that department when it travels, it generates the entire traces.
That's fantastic. Bang on. Big round of applause, please. Yeah. So that's bang on, right? So it is actually, just to put it in other words, so this is something to invoke or instill the trust, right, in the code of law, as well as to our customers, that whatever evidence that we are working on has not been tampered with, right? It is a kind of audit trail of who did what and when did it happen whenever we are dealing with a particular instance of an evidence that we have collected, right? And then we move to the other areas. The next logical step becomes capture the timeline, take the forensic snapshot of your victim's machine, and then you adhere to the sequence of preserving the evidence, right, following the industry acceptable best practices. So you can tweak on that, and then you can follow it as per your organization's model. Now, just like forensics, digital forensics has also a lot of sub-branches under it, many areas, right? But as per the context of this workshop, we are going to focus only on the ones highlighted in red over there. Yeah? Now that we have got a sense of, what are the key tenets, let's talk about order of volatility. Now, again a question. Has anyone heard of this term? All right. So order of volatility is a fabulous document created by the Internet Engineering Task Force, right? It actually, focuses on the evidence collection and archival, right? So this document lays explains it in detail about the guidelines of how do you capture the evidences when you're trying to handle a forensic investigation scenario. What to capture first? So we typically, it states that we should start with the most volatile item and then move towards the least volatile item. Like on your screen, you can see that we start with the most volatile item, which is the registers, the CPU cache, right? Then we move on to the routing table, ARP cache, because those can get, vanished in nanoseconds, right? So we need to preserve those evidences first. Then we move on to the virtual memory, the disk drives, and preserving the backups and printouts. Yeah, so this is governed by order of volatility that all the forensic investigators follow, and this has been underlaid in RFC 3227. So I would encourage you to just have a look at it and get more details around it. Once we are aware of order of volatility, we know what to capture. Now the next step before we begin the investigation is to capture the timeline, right? Now there are two reasons for it. Reason number one is it helps us to determine at what point in time we started the investigation, because we also, during the investigation, we may end up in modifying few of the content. So we should have a point rollback in time. That's one. Number two is to understand the system times offset, right? So because most of the organizations, I'm sure, are relying on a single source of time, which is your NTP server, absolutely, right? So NTP server. So all your assets are typically, synchronized with your NTP server, right? So if there is a deviation at the time of investigation, we need to, compute that system time offset and document it. Logical, no rocket science, everything common sense as of now. Then we move on to the snapshot. We take the forensic snapshot of the system's memory. Now, when it comes to memory, you know that, it is totally different from your disk drives. Not only is it volatile in nature, but it is super fast. That's why operating systems, rely on using this portion of the memory to run the dynamic content. Yeah? So we have to preserve that particular piece. Because, if I talk about the Windows operating system, every process sees, the file, the disk in the form of 4 GB of, say, for example, process space, right? But behind the curtains, each, this disk is, or this portion of the memory is categorized into pages. And we write the content on those pages. And if the pages are not being used, then we write it in the page file, pagefile.sys, sorry, right? That's the name of the file. There are many tools available today in the market, which are freeware. Just do a common Google search, your memory dump, volatility, and then you dump it. You can use it to take a snapshot of your image, right? Now comes the interesting part. Yeah, sorry. So typically, these the folks are smart, right? So there's a freeware and then there's a paid version. So with the paid version, these problems are very minimal in nature. That's what we use in our labs, right? In order to investigate a particular dump. Okay, so we take a dump of the victim's machine and then analyze it using that particular version, a complete version of the software.
I'm sorry, just a second. So we have seats here, please occupy.
All right. So as I was saying, now comes the interesting portion, okay? This is a classic example of one of the operating system files, pagefile.sys, okay, which is, in other terms, it is the virtual memory that the Windows uses whenever it runs out of your operating system, the disk space or the RAM, then this virtual memory is being used, right? So, but If I want to, or you want to just open your laptop and try to access the content of this file, you can't do that because this is a locked file, locked by the operating system for obvious reasons. Right? Now, if you want to look into the contents of these files, you have to, take help from the third-party tools like FTK Imager, right? To be able to have a deeper look across the contents of the file. You can see it out here. I've just, captured a snapshot of it. We're trying to export the content of pagefile.sys. But once we have done that, the job is not done. We again have to execute few specialized commands like @tribunal to change the permission set of this file and then make it visible in the directory. Then you can take a dump of it. Right? So again, a lot of exercise that you have to do to read the content of a single file. Now, this is an example. Of course, I cannot share all the files, but just like this, there are many other files, like master file table. You've got your boot exec.dat, in which you need specialized experience. You need specialized skill set and the seasoned veterans to be able to, look what to look and where to look, and then also be able to adapt your stance as per the adversary's moves. Right? Not every time, adversary will let you know that, okay, I'll craft a malware that will, write in these sections. So you should be equipped to adapt yourself with the moves of the adversaries as well. Fair enough, right? Now that we have understood about this, okay, we have got a standard, an overview of the standard, logical process of forensic investigation. An approach is clear. Now I would like to just do one quick activity for which I would need 2 volunteers. Just plain, simple, real-life questions. Can we have 2 volunteers, please?
Yeah, please, sir, come in.
All right, please come.
We must appreciate your sporty nature, sir. Every time you're always ready to answer or probably to play a part.
Sorry, we are just short of mics, otherwise no issue. Please. Who can be
One
the
more.
second volunteer?
Yeah, ma'am, please come.
Yeah.
Please join in.
So the idea of this exercise is to illustrate, imagine you're going on a vacation in your new car with your family. All of a sudden you experience that, the car has started, has come to an halt. And when you get down, you see that, oh, I've got a flat tire. It's a puncture. What typical steps would you take to overcome this situation?
Okay, so like I'll change the tire with the stepney which I have in the spare, and that's the best one. I can do it.
Also look out for nearby, garage who could actually fix it for us, isn't it? Right? Logical. Makes sense. Please,
What would I do?
No, the question for you would be a little different. You will not be, okay. Is it not audible? All right. Is it any better now? Okay. All right. So the question for you, ma'am, is that you're working on an important case and you need to send out a very important mail to your boss, right? And all of a sudden you realize that, the internet or the network is not working on your laptop. What troubleshooting steps would you typically take?
I would try to check if the internet is...
My mic,
Okay.
please.
I would check if the internet is working, switch on, switch off and see. If it's not working, I'll call my boss, give the inputs over phone and close it.
That's a smart way of dealing with it.
You delegate it to your boss, that's the best way. Even I follow the same. All right.
Round of applause. Can we have the goodies for them? Just we'll just hand over the goodies to you.
Okay, so as you see, in both
One for gentlemen also. Congratulations and thank you so much.
okay. So now coming to the actual item.
Thank you so much.
So if you see, there were two different situations given to two different people, right? In one scenario, someone came up with, I'll check for the tire. I'll check for maybe a nearby, a person who could help me. I'll check for the necessary tools to be able to, analyze whether I could fix it myself, right? So, and another person in a different scenario came up with the solution. I, check, try to disable, enable, check if the signal strength is optimal or not, or I'll delegate it to one person. Yeah, now it's better. Okay, so this is something that requires experience, right? So now I would like to open the forum, open the stage and request your participation. Firstly, to make it, to convey it in a better way, that why was this relevant in the middle of nowhere of forensic investigation? How did, the psychic exercise came in between, right? So just think about it. Is there a human, if there is a human machine teaming approach, right, that can help you in solving your problems, how effectively would it help you in driving your business? Anyone? Do you think it would be beneficial? It maybe, won't make a difference or is not required? Right? Beneficial? Okay. Now, what if a solution empowers your less experienced analyst, right, your L1 and L2 resources, to be able to do the job or the tasks that requires vast experience? How would that change the game for you, for your SOC analysts, right? So even we would become the forensic investigator in minutes, right? And then what if we give more time to your senior analysts, your L3 and L4 resources, whose job is to proactively hunt the threats in your environment, right? That definitely, makes remarkable difference. But is that solution, does that solution exist? Well, yes, that's possible today with the help of a concept which is based on automated AI-based guided investigations, right? So what is that? What is an AI-guided investigation? This is similar to, much like a more experienced analyst, trying to help the junior analyst to walk them through the investigation process. Yeah? So behind the curtains, the AI engine has been programmed to automatically gather and crunches through a huge amount of data which it has accumulated from different sources. Your endpoints, your SIM solution, your threat intel platform, your global threat intelligence, right? So all the data that it accumulates from different sources, it crunches through it and then asks the right set of questions, come up with the right set of answers, and then help you with the identification of the known threats. So what? How does it help me or my organization? So this definitely helps you to reduce the time to investigate, and it improves the fidelity of investigation. As I said, during the initial talk, that if a particular problem or an incident is given to two analysts, one analyst may solve it in 4 hours, another may take 4 days to solve this, right? So how do you come with the optimized troubleshooting or optimized approach to solve a particular incident? That's what the goal is for when it comes to fidelity of investigation. So we have used the global experience of the malware experts, ingested that in the AI engine, which is continually, upgrading itself, staying abreast with the situation, learning from your environment, and then taking actions for you. Yes. So that's why. Typically, malwares across the globe exhibit a typical, behavior pattern, right? So if it is totally unknown, at least we can get you the traces. And then it's up to you whether to approve or disapprove that particular hypothesis and relaunch that particular investigation. Right? Now third is, it helps you to overcome the alert overload scenario. I think someone raised a question, my analysts are bombarded with a lot of alerts. How do you actually address that scenario? So in that situation also, it not only reduces the alerts for you, but also augments you or empowers you to take action against it in an automated way. Now let me bring your attention to one of the technologies like EDR. What role can it play in your environment, right? In your next generation cyber SOCs. So we know that when it comes to EDR, it has something to do with the endpoints, as the name say, endpoint detection and response. I'm sure everyone is aware of the EDR technology today, right? Okay, so we know that endpoints generate a rich amount of data, right? Our 100,000 endpoints generating humongous amount of data, which are very rich in nature. But we need tools like EDR to be able to, traverse through that data, to be able to provide us the search capabilities, the hunting capabilities, and then, come up with the alerts. But what an EDR tool today cannot do for you is it cannot interpret the data. It cannot present the findings for you. That's where you need to, leverage the AI-based technologies. So we have taken a very redefined approach to EDR, wherein we accumulate all the data from your endpoints, right? Apply analytics to it, provide you the surface findings in the form of anomalous or threat behavior, and then empowers you to take action against it. Vis-a-vis a standard EDR tool that provides you the alerts. But as you know, alerts cannot be resolved on its own, right? In order to resolve the alerts, we need to come up with the validation process in our minds, wherein the human expertise is required. Isn't it? So that's why we are leveraging technologies like AI to be able to do that job for us. That's where mVision EDR, a new concept, a specialized engine, helps you to empower your analysts to be able to detect the advanced threats, fully investigate, and then remediate that particular scenario by continuous data collection and applying analytics on top of it.
So, if you remember, one of the cyber kills that we spoke of, as a part of the overall process that we were talking about, in terms of pre-attack and post-attack, which was ATT and CK, right? So, if you remember the pre-ATT and CK and post-ATT and CK, the traditional endpoint detection response tools that we've been talking about, or the EDR tools, the signature-based, signature-less, because now the new terminology or the fancy word for EDR that people use is beyond signature, sir. This is signature-less, so you will be covered with anything and anything that is coming with a 0 day, which is not true. So the traditional EDR solutions are taking care of the pre-attack part of it, which is the recon and weaponization part. But if you remember, the entire process flow that we spoke of was to continuously contaminate, eradicate, learn from there, and give it back to your system for your better preparation. And that is what precisely the previous slide also, if you look at, we're learning continuously and feeding that data back to your own ecosystem. So once we have the learnings, once we have the data available to us, we don't keep it to ourselves, we give it to you. In a guided investigation mode, which is what he said. And which is what I also said. Ideally, L1 and L2 or L2 person should be able to do the basic or rather advanced investigation, and only when a specific threat hunting is required, you need to involve L3. And that's what we are enabling with the help of this solution.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically we are covering about entire spectrum of breach or exploit, not limiting it to a particular incident or a particular ransomware. It will give you a full-fledged EDR functionality along with the capability to handle the incidents in a much better way. Because you will be guided through the entire process when you are doing an investigation response.
So you're correct actually. So in this scenario, what happens is we are leveraging the power of AI, as Hiral is saying, but we are not inspecting based on the signature based or a particular methodology, right? We are inspecting the behavior of that file. So when it comes to the ransomware family of variants, right? So they typically, exhibit a state of behavior. Like for example, it spawns a new child process, and that child process, hooks up to an operating system process, creates a new file, and makes a callback connection to the attacker, right? So it's a series. So we analyze the behavior of those ransomwares or malwares, and then we come to a conclusion that okay, it is a familial resemblance with maybe WannaCry, right? And then we provide you the traces. This is how we feel that it should be convicted as a malware. It's of medium severity, a high severity, which I'll show it to you in the coming section, right? But this is how you do it, right? And if you are able to do that, then definitely, it shrinks the overall investigation workflow. Yeah? Does it answer the question? All right. Okay. So are we doing good? We're fine, right? Okay. Any questions? All right. So now this is the time to experience the talk. Whatever I've been talking about, Hiral has explained from procedural aspect, right? Let's see what role can, we have seen just a quick summary, we have seen what role can, if you end up in a situation like breach and attack, how do you overcome that situation using the expert skills. And then we have seen the investigation from forensic investigation standpoint, what manual activities do you have to do in order to dig out the information, the relevant traces, right, from your logs. And then we moved on to what role can AI play in it. And now I'm going to show you how human and machine can collaborate together to be able to solve the complex threats. Yeah? So out here, this is the, can we just turn off these lights? Is it possible? Or is it visible to everyone? Right. Just a moment. Is it working? Okay. So starting with the top row, answering the question, right? So we have got it categorized, the total number of threats that we have analyzed in your environment, and then we have categorized it on the basis of severity. How many of them are high, medium, and what should I focus on to begin my day, right? And on the left-hand side out here, you can see the threats categorized by ranking. Yeah, so you can start with the investigation with the medium alert or a high alert. You click on that, and then you see all the information related to it. What was the initial trigger for this file in my environment? When was it last seen? When was it first seen in my environment? And what is the age of this malware to be prevalent in my environment? It may be lying for past 30 days. I may not be aware of that. So it tells you the age of that particular malware as well. So it has been lying since past 10 days. Then you see all the process level attributes for that file, the hashes, the name of the file, and most importantly out here, you see what all systems has it affected in my environment. How many systems have been affected by this particular threat, right? So then the next thing comes over here is to observe the threat behavior. As I said, it's not very clear out here. It's not coming out to be clear. The threat behavior is to outline that why did we feel that this is a malicious file, right? What are the suspicious indicators? See, this particular sample tried to create a new PE file and then tried to modify a few of the files in your system32 folder. Write something to the registry, copy something from another critical folder. So these are the behaviors, these are the suspicious indicators using which the solution has analyzed and told you that, okay, this is why I feel it to be malicious with severity 1 or severity 2, whatever. And then this is, the important thing out here is totally mapped to your MITRE, ATT and CK framework. So you can open the MITRE framework from here, and then you can, check what particular, technique, tactic or procedure is being used by this particular file, right? Now, if you want to go take a deeper look on the timeline, you can have a look out here that, this particular malware file tried to use a Windows operating system process and then launched the services.exe, and then it hooked up to SVC host, another operating system process, and then it started triggering itself, right? It created a key, an encryption key, and tried to encrypt few files. It maybe, tried to made a callback connection to the attacker. So everything in front of your eyes. And if you want to take action against it, you can immediately launch an investigation for this threat. You want to understand it from the AI perspective. Like, for example, you have given over this particular alert to your forensic investigator. He will start investigating. He'll start accumulating artifacts against it, right? So you can launch an investigation immediately. So the first thing that you would like to do is, see the historical device trace for the machine, the victim machine, right? What just happened before this file was executed and what happened after the file has been executed. This is what a typical approach an administrator takes, right? What did you do? Where did you download the file from? As soon as you triggered, what were the symptoms that you experienced? So this is what you see in the historical search. So you can see that, how many detections and alerts were there, how many processes were executed, what admin or hacking tools were used. Did it, fired few written scripts? Did it try to, made some network connections? So all those things you can actually have a look at from the historical search. And then alerts, if you want to start working on the alerts, again, categorize based on the severity. Start working on the alerts immediately, which is totally in line with the tactics. Which command was used, you can go up to that extent, which command was executed by that malware, and whether it is mapped to a particular tactic from the MITRE framework or not. If yes, that will be shown out here. What is the technique used, which device, which process name. You can go up to at a significant granular detail over here. Then the time comes to actually do a real-time search across your environment. Imagine a scenario. You are the CIO of the organization, right? You're the head of security. At 12 o'clock at night, you got a call from one of the SOC analysts saying that, boss, we have been, there is a malware outbreak and I feel that we have been attacked, right? So the first thing that you are going to do in the morning is that, ask them, what is the level of damage that has been done? How many systems have been impacted? Then we got a very interesting input from Sir out here that, if someone has reported that, okay, I executed this file and, hence I have got, my system has got encrypted by a ransomware, right? So there are 10 such reported incidents. But can you confidently answer that that is the actual level of damage for you? No, there may be, files which are laterally moved, as Hiral explained, across your environment and are lying in a dormant state on your critical servers that you may not be aware of now, or the time bomb type of scenario. So in order to analyze those, you need to run a real-time search in your environment to identify those 100 systems out of the 100 or 200,000 endpoints that you have, right? So out here, when you launch that type of real-time search, you can immediately take an action against all those 100 systems with a single click away. Now this taking action is categorized into 3 parts. First is the remediation part of it, wherein you can delete that folder, where the malware file exists. Or you can, go and stop and remove the file. You can do a lot of other actions. You can execute a remote reboot of the operating system, right? Just to, disconnect the connections. Or you can dump the entire artifacts that have been accumulated in the form of a file and hand it over to, a forensic investigator if you still are not convinced with the hypothesis, with the investigation done by the tool. Or you can contain the file As I said, you remotely you can go up to the extent you disable the NIC, right? The entire victim's machine would come in a lockdown state. It would not be able to communicate over internet except the ports on which you would like to troubleshoot, right? So then you can even, quarantine a device from here. You can select the number of devices or all the devices, quarantine it, inoculate, vaccinate your environment. The infection should not get propagated across, right? All these things happening just a single click away, right? Not much rocket science that we'll have to apply over here. The tool does it for us. Now, from investigation perspective, this is a consolidated dashboard that tells you that, these are the ongoing investigations, these are the investigations that have been recently, created. These are the high severity investigations, and out of the 6 high severity, 4 of them have been successfully closed, right? But for the ongoing high investigations, you may want to have a look. So I'll click on one of the investigation out here, and as I said, for that particular threat, using AI, we will try to capture the artifacts about the behavior of that file. And out here, in this example, we have captured total 289 artifacts. We have discovered that, and out of that, we have, got you the actionable intelligence in the form of what you need to focus on. Of course, you cannot, for every incident, you cannot go through hundreds of artifacts, right? You got to have a trimmed or an actionable intelligence portion where your guys have to focus on. So these are the 7 key findings. So if you see the 7 key findings as per the investigated items, there is one device which has been impacted. It was trying to communicate to 5 other IP addresses. It has actually tried to modify 66 files on the system, and so on, right? After that, the interesting part comes, wherein I said, asking the right set of questions, right? And finding the answers at the right places. So the tool does it for you. So questions answered by the system vis-a-vis the findings. So does an endpoint contain kind of uncommon processes that it typically does not do, or did it try to make changes to the registry? Why would, a legitimate file try to kill or delete one of the files from my system32 folder? Why would it try to replace a operating system file? So all those traces it has observed, and then you can check the findings against it. For example, is there any process operating a socket that commonly does not do it? You can see that, there were so many socket connections launched by this particular malware.
Also to highlight, I think the Foundstone services which I spoke of, a dedicated pool of resources and dedicated consulting organization, which has only been dealing in incident response and forensics. The entire knowledge base and the learnings that we have from so many years, more than a decade, is actually been put into this tool. So all of this hypothesis that we're talking about, I think hypothesis sort of explained with an exercise that we did, as to when you have been given an incident, how do you respond? What questions do you ask? How do you proceed further? Now, similarly to the first exercise that we did, we gave you an alert wherein you were to analyze the complete incident, and there were certain steps that we asked you to choose the answers. And we said there is no 0 to 1, because it's completely based on individual approach, which we said. That means you might want to investigate, you might assign a priority, but ideally, if you go by the expert's advice, those were the answers of the steps to take. Similarly, here also all of these questions which we are highlighting as a part of the tools are the right set of approaches and right set of answers to know to do further investigation. Yeah, so the entire knowledge base that we had with respect to all the exercises that we have done with the customers, done the IR services, learned from our own forensic labs, everything is been put out here, and that gets updated regularly as and when we learn. So this is again, it's part of the tool. And also one more thing, I think the key thing that you can see out there, from 289 artifacts, reducing it to 51, even further reducing it to 7, which is what is called clearing the clutter. I think that is what we spoke in the first exercise also. If you have so many incidents which is getting generated day by day, in fact every day, and you have so many limited pool of resources who are just doing ticketing for you, which is L1, some of them are doing investigation, which is L2, and L3, how much can a particular person handle? So from whatever you're collecting, how do you have the very, very limited amount of data to investigate? So that you're very sure. So system does like more than 50% work for you in terms of making sure that whatever we are defining as high priority is actually requiring your attention. And that's where we talk about human machine teamwork. Yeah?
Okay, all right. So now this particular screen actually shows you the relationship diagram for the key findings that we have observed in your environment, right? You can see that, out here, there was a network callback connection which the malware tried to make, right, on so-and-so IP addresses, right? You can also check, if there was a process, can I immediately take an action against it? Can I immediately from this relationship map check how many and execute a query across my entire environment, whether any other machine has have witnessed a similar hash, and then you can take action against it. You can get the convictions from your other systems as well, right, which we call as the activity feed. It's not taking the intelligence from your endpoint environment only, right? It's gathering, it's accumulating the insights from your SIM solution, from your global threat intelligence platform, and from many other solutions, and then trying to investigate and alert automatically in different ways, right? Then coming up with an analysis that you can approve or disapprove. That's what is bringing out at least near to the conclusion for you, right? That is why we term it as guided investigation. Yeah. Now out here, whatever action you take, you quarantine a device, from audit trail perspective, you can go back and check your administrator's activities, who did what, who created a case, what action was taken, and all those stuff. And out here, now this brings me to another important point. Based on our experience, okay, so if we go to the customers, the government, enterprise customers who have been using the solutions, be it one solution or the other, right, regardless of the vendor, one common question that is being asked is that, all right, we have been using this tool, which you suggested, very good. There are no operational issues, or there may be operational issues, but now that we are 8 months or 12 months down the line, right, what is the security effectiveness? What is the value it has added in my environment? How many of us would agree that this is a valid question to measure the security effectiveness? Isn't it? Right? So what value is it adding in my environment? Now, to answer that question, it's a very thoughtful move that we have come up with a kind of performance metrics dashboard for you, wherein we empower the management, the executive management, to have a look by themselves, right? So out here you can see that how many investigations were open, how many of them were high priority, how many of them have been closed successfully, and then new investigations week on week, month on month. Is it going up? Is it coming down? How much time is my analyst now spending in the dashboard? What are the weekly findings? What is the total time spent? And all those stuff. There are a lot of metrics using which you could get the answer on your own. What value is it adding to your environment? Yeah. So with this, I would like to just conclude this technical part of this workshop, and now the floor is open for any queries or doubts. So, thank you.
Will it contain the intelligence gathered through other implementation by McAfee?
Yes, it would.
Or only our that is locally deployed?
Okay, so it would be integrated with the global threat intelligence feed from McAfee. Yes, that's a given. Not really, not entirely, although it analyzes the behavior of the file, but it does not completely detonates the file in an isolated environment. That's what a sandbox solution does for you, right? So it doesn't let the file to be executed in your real-time environment. It actually, check that in an isolated environment. It's a detection and remediation tool, as the name suggests, right? So if something, of course, we use the protection part of the technologies, your AVs, firewalls, NIPS, and all those stuff. These are preventive controls, right? If something gets escaped from this particular, array of solutions, then how do you detect that? That's where solutions like EDR can actually help you. Yeah? It is absolutely vendor neutral. There is no lockout with any specific vendor, even ourselves. It's an independent solution on its own. It's a very good question. So if you'd ask me, I would say it's totally no false alarms. That may not be the right statement to make. It's a subjective thing, right? So of course, you should refer to the reports from our AV test, and what Gartner says about this. What recently there's a report specifically published on AI-based guided investigations by Forrester, right? They say that the existing EDR solutions are not sufficient to control the damage or detect the damage done to my environment. So hence we need to go and look forward to technologies like AI-based guided investigations, right? And the false alarm, the rate of false alarms, you can also check on the MITRE framework that typically analyzes all these things. But me answering this, no, zero. No, there would be. We have to. It's a continual process. We have to fine tune it. We have to work towards it. What does that mean? Can you elaborate on that? It can analyze the network traffic for sure. Yes. Yes. Please tell me. Okay. Okay, so that is a classic case to be detected at your network layer first, right? Your NIPS solution, your next generation firewalls are actually are equipped with the core capability to analyze such scenarios. But what you're talking about is a detection and hunt. If you have been impacted and there is a malicious, a kind of callback connection happening from that victim's machine, then definitely yes, it can get you those details, right? But what all IPs, was it unusable IPs, mapping of that is the core capability of a network security solution. Or will it be an agentless, is what you're saying? Definitely yes. Yeah.
So the approach will generally whatever we have as a isolated network, or maybe which will not be with the server connectivity. So how this will be handled?
In
any isolated systems is there?
Okay. Okay. So for the air gap networks, right? So we need to rely on the technologies like that are totally based on machine learning and behavior-based detection, the dynamic application containment. The real protect and dynamic application containment is two of the technologies that can protect you using a signature-less inspection methodology in that scenario. But for this, you got to have the agent communicating back to the Ambition cloud.
Yes, so sir, as we said, because we are ingesting the intelligence which we have learned over a period of time, we can't report that back to your air gap network. So predominantly the technologies that we mentioned are like the endpoint security capabilities that we have towards the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are steady. So basically there are two ways to deal with it. One is dynamic, which will be getting the intelligence back from the specialized pool of resources that we have, which is already highlighted. Another way to look at it is to have a static deployment in such isolated or edge-driven environments.
Does that answer the question? Fair enough. Please. We can do that. We can launch a real-time search against a particular machine, and launch an investigation of what. Yes, we can do that. Right? We can check what all, as I said, during the talk, that what all happened just before this file was triggered and what happened after that. So all the pre-analysis and post-analysis on that particular machine, the victim's machine, can be done.
Such alerts are being reported, then I want this action to be deleted. The folders need to be deleted. I need the files to be clear. So can I set up rules like this so that in future, instantly, if one of the scan is being reported such issues, then it should not wait for my intervention to take this action.
True.
So is this can be done there?
Very smart question. Definitely yes. Using the triggers and the reactions, right? So we can set up the triggers in each of our endpoints, saying that, okay, if this rule, the criteria defined in that rule is met, then the trigger gets activated. And then as the trigger gets activated, you can take an automated or a manual reaction against it. So the answer to this is definitely yes, we can do this. This is a core capability of this solution. Sorry? Over the cloud?
Containers nowadays going on. Yeah. So whether the solution can inspect the attack which is generated by the containers, shadow image attack types?
Not at this point of time.
Like Docker's, like nowadays is going on. So
I got your point. Not at this point of time. This is not meant to actually, hunt in that particular space.
Okay.
There's a different, that's again, a capability of a different solution altogether.
Okay. So reason behind is because Docker or container is sitting on the same OS with the resource pooling mechanisms and accessing the OS layers and different layers.
True.
Okay, creating different virtual IP addresses because the things is happening within the container and not getting outside. So I'm thinking from the REST perspective.
Yeah. No, the question is definitely valid, but at this point of time, this tool is meant to, play in a specific arena, right?
Okay.
Of course, that's a very broad arena to play in, but what you're talking about is an expertise of a different solution.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Say for example, EDR technology you're talking about, we haven't got it, but it's taking a long time to implement it. I'm not sure, is it a new technology? Then McAfee has got something like that, or between the partners who are trying to implement it in our case. We love to have a lot more solutions, but it's again taking time. And that too, in the implementation phase, if we go ahead, there are a lot of modes, medium, security and other things. It's very difficult for us to understand that. I would love to go on strictly adhere to security mode, but then I'm getting advice from McAfee saying that no, it is not required. So maybe one-on-one we can do it, but what is the typical time period for implementing all the solutions will be really good.
So in this scenario, okay, so the time frame shrinks by considerable margins, right? So because this is something that we are doing it and launching it from the cloud, and all you need is to push the agents and then boom, there we go. We start collecting the traces, start collecting the logs in a seamless way, right? So vis-a-vis another traditional type of EDR solutions, I think the deployment timeline would speed up by at least 5x, right? Is all I can say. It's just, don't quote me for that, but this is what our experience as of now on the ground is. Sorry.
So what I have seen is that when we deploy these kind of technologies on an endpoint, usually they eat up a lot of processes and the memory, and system usually becomes quite slow. You just complained about these technologies. So what is the performance impact of these agents or the technologies on the endpoint?
Okay, again a good question, but a subjective answer, right? Because it brings into consideration a lot of environment factors as well. what is the compute, what is the bandwidth, how many applications are running, how many data is stored on the device. But at the same time, you have a valid question, right? So the performance impact can be gauged through, if you're interested, I can share one report with you wherein we have tested the solution in a specific scenario, and we have tried to figure out the actual performance, which is like very minimal at this stage, but depending on the environment, it may actually go up and down.
I believe it should happen at centrally, not on the actual endpoints.
All we are doing is we are not executing anything on the endpoint. We have it would by a minuscule way. There is definitely an overhead for every technology. If I say it's 0, that would be wrong. It's tending to 0 is all I can say, because what we are doing is we are just pushing a small agent, a lightweight agent, which is acting as a CCTV camera, right, on your endpoints. It's watching what is happening on your endpoints day in and day out, and working in a promiscuous mode. And in case it encounters anything suspicious, it relays it back to the central console, right? And that's where you start hunting about those threats. Yeah? All right. Any other question? With? Yes, definitely. At this point of time, we support the integration with third-party solutions as well as our own SIEM solution. Yeah. It's very important to gather the insights from the SIEM solution, because as I said, that's the focal point of your environment. This is the guy who's talking to all other assets in your corporate IT environment. So if we manage to integrate with that, we can sleep comfortably. Yeah. It does, right? And it in the form of traces. We actually. That's a. Okay, so this is definitely a good question, and I would say that from privacy perspective, we can share the document that what all controls are imposed on that data, and whatever we are capturing is only the behavior based statistics. We are not capturing anything which is specific to your environment as such. Whatever the exhibited behaviors are for that malware, right? As I shown in my demonstration, the detection and alerts, for example, right? The masked version of it. Then you've got your scripts which have been used, the admin or hacking tools that have been used. So the information related to that is actually collected in the form of traces. But if you talk about anything environment specific, no. But we'll show that to you as per the agreement that this is what we are collecting.
And also, sir, with respect to privacy, because it's a very, very broad term and very broad topic, I think as of now, in India, the only thing that is very, very clear out there, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, it's only the data localization part of it. As far as your data, whatever we are collecting, though we are collecting very little, as we said, only trace information, if it is within the Indian territory, it should be okay. So that is something that we would be taking care of. Rest, of course, because it requires specialized skills which cannot be put out on-premise thing, and hence we rely on a specialized tool or resources or something which is outside your premises.
Okay. It's definitely there. The BCP planning, the DR exercises that we conduct. This is a solution, I would say, which is hosted on which is leveraging the AWS. All the power of that AWS brings to the table, right? So it's hosted over there, and we are leveraging everything, and we are also conducting we have our own BCP plan which we have shared with them and which we run through on continual basis at a defined frequency. So that is there. More details, I can send it over to you. For sure.
How long it is depending on the data? So let's say I want to investigate any alert or any kind of investigation to past 6 months. So can it retain the data for the last 6 months or something?
Yes. So out here, you can go back in time until 90 days for now, right? The historical trace collection. So there are two versions of it available. which is like you want to opt for 30 days retention of the data or 90 days retention of the data. So you can go back in time and analyze up to that time range. We are working towards it. We are working to increase it to 180 days, which would be done in the coming months, next couple of months.
So the agents will be deployed in my environment, and let's say how they are communicating to the centralized server. So will it be in the McAfee or will it be in the on-premises? How will it be deployed?
It can be both. Either you can deploy it from the cloud, or you can have your on-prem EPO use that to deploy the agents. Both the options. We are flexible from that perspective.
Okay, now since we're short of time, we'll only take one question now.
Yeah, okay.
We will be actually validating. Yes, we can take one question. Okay.
How will the EDR solution time of in terms of response time will be differed from SOC and EDR? So you said EDR inputs will be from SOC. So SOC is already doing a first level of analysis and forward to EDR, and in again EDR we are deviating as level 1, level 2, level 3. So what is the response time that we are giving there in EDR, and from SOC to EDR, how much timeline will be considered?
Okay. So it's not mandatory to integrate with SOC. That's point number one. Point number two is, even if you do that, right? So we've got the stats that an average time taken by an analyst to resolve a particular incident, accumulating all the facts manually, was around 2 hours and 14 minutes. And when the same scenario was tested with this tool, it was done in 6 minutes. So that's the power of it.
Also, so the reliance is not only on the SOC tool, as you rightly said. The reliance is majorly on the gathering that our tool is doing. And that's why we are putting agent on the endpoint. I think that's the clarity you want to give you first. Because SOC integration is adding on top of the knowledge that we have gained. Because it is talking to some other components also within your organization. But majorly what we are taking on is the endpoint risk, which is for what our agent is deploying.
Can, if just with the interest in time, yeah, I'll take it with you offline. Or anyway, we would be here, our team would be here for the next couple of days. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, just the interest of time, people have come, so sorry about that. Now is the time to do a quick validation of what has been conveyed, has actually been retained or not, right? So the first question, just a quick activity, another chance to win the goodies out here. So man has already raised the hand before I ask the question. So which IETF document focuses on evidence collection from most volatile to least volatile item? I have just shared it in my doc.
Can we hand over the goodie to ma'am?
Ma'am, first. Pallavi.
I will give
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Okay. So the next question, just don't answer, okay? Just raise your hand first. Keep your eye very sharp. Who raises the fit first? Okay. So order of volatility is actually the right answer. So moving on, which statement holds true for an EDR solution? Just read it calmly. I think there were hands out here. Okay, let's see.
First answer came from me, yeah.
All right, okay. Okay, anyone else? D, yeah, no, next. Here we go. We've got the winner. B. So as I mentioned in the talk that EDR tools today can provide us the alerts, analytics, and search capabilities, but what they can do for us is they cannot interpret the data and present findings to us. And for that, we need to leverage on the human expertise, our skilled resources to be able to do that. Yeah? So, okay. Another one, what is the chain of trust in digital forensic investigation? What are you waiting for? You answered it. Okay. Okay, don't answer. Just who said C? Ma'am will be generous enough to just give it to you. So you win it. Yes. So it's actually an audit trail of who did what and when did it happen to a particular piece of evidence. Then number 4, what is automated AI-based guided investigations? I'm sure that has become part of your DNA by now. Yes, absolutely. Just be active. Raise your hand. I'll give it to you. Okay. Now, what out of these is an area covered under digital forensics? The first hand, please. Here we go. D is the correct answer over here. All of the above, right? I specifically mentioned that, just the ones focused and highlighted in red, right? So everything is there. So this ends with our workshop, the validation part. I hope it has been an informative one for you. Just to summarize, what are the key takeaways from the workshop? So I, on behalf of my team, would encourage you all to adopt technologies like AI-based guided investigations to be able to fast track the speed of investigation and empower your less experienced analyst to be able to accomplish more at a faster pace, right? So with this, we mark the end of this particular workshop. But before we leave, we would just like to take a moment and urge you to to hear the keynote from our managing director, who is a veteran in the cybersecurity industry, and he would be presenting on the topic of the modern approach to cybersecurity, right? So, and our team would be around for the next couple of days, and you can reach out to us at booth number 53 for any questions and in any way we can assist. So it's a truly pleasure to be able to present in front of you.
The keynote that would be done by our MD would be on 5th of December at 5:30 p.m. So just a note out there. And stay tuned for more. We would be covering up some of the statistical discussion point in the keynote, and we are available for next 2 days on the booth number 53. Do reach out for any queries or any help around any McAfee solutions or services that you want. Thank you so much.
But fantastic. Thanks for being the wonderful audience and being very participative. I appreciate that.